a million. Great job, Sharon. Really enjoyed that Q&A in particular. I hope this is relevant to you guys, but Kim asked me just to give you a little bit of a history of the event. Anybody heard of Inspirefest?
Yeah.
That's the answer we like. Okay. So, believe it or not, Inspirefest 19 is going into its 5th year. So, it's our 5th birthday, and as all you guys who work in events know, running events in Ireland can be challenging enough. People don't always want to pay for tickets and things like that. So it's been hard work, but we've pulled it off, and we're growing it, quite significantly, which is absolutely amazing. I also have my wonderful events leader, my colleague Lisa, here as well. I don't know if anybody knows Lisa Murphy, but make sure to say hello to her afterwards. She's incredible. Spent about 14 years in Australia, 13 or 14. Back in Ireland now and part of the event scene, so we're very, very lucky to have her. Just going to scoot through very, very quickly. We were talking about community and that sort of area. Something that's very important to us at Silicon Republic and any event we do is the whole idea of purpose. We don't see the point of doing all that hard work on an event unless it has purpose. Inspirefest grew out of this kind of stat here. The little red is women. The purple is men. That's the sector that Silicon Republic and the Silicon Republic team and myself work in, and it's just absolutely shocking because some of the most interesting jobs in the world are in tech and science. So we've very early on, starting back in about 2012, decided we really wanted to change that. So we started looking at, what are the reasons? They're fairly obvious, cultural mindsets, clogs in the educational pipeline, imposter syndrome. Everybody know what imposter syndrome is?
Oh, yeah.
We all have it, male and female, by the way, but it tends to be stronger. Who said that? So that I'm looking. Sorry, imposter syndrome is that idea of am I good enough to be here? I probably have it a little bit now. Just before I gave the talk, I was standing up and going, is this going to be relevant? That's imposter syndrome. It tends to be more prevalent in women's society. There's good old-fashioned sexism as well, but the less we say about that. Biggest problem is the image problem. Anybody know this series? Silicon Valley on HBO. This is what we were kind of trying to combat, just to make sure that people felt a bit more welcome. Those figures are incredible considering the very first computer scientist was a woman, Ada Lovelace. These are the women who worked on the ENIAC computer during World War II. They were called computers at the time. All the best computer scientists were women in those days because it didn't pay very well. So for obvious reasons, those roles tended to go to women instead of men. As soon as it started to pay better, I'm afraid that changed. Anybody know what this is?
Yes.
You all know who it is, do you? Hedy Lamarr, exactly. So not only was she known as the most beautiful woman in the world, she was also the woman who co-invented basically the protocol behind Wi-Fi. I bet you didn't know that. Recognize these three women? Yeah, nice one. Now you do. So, there was all these incredible women through the years, and yet then tech in the last sort of 20, 30 years got a very much of a bro duty kind of culture and started to become not so welcoming. Anybody know who that is? That's the Chief Technology Officer for Burning Man. Sorry, blank there, long day. Again, people don't picture chief technology officers this way. We kind of have a very staid idea of what people look like. And yet, I'm off to Asia next week. These are the kind of conferences I go to in Asia. I go to plenty of them in Europe as well. They look like that. They're all European conferences. There's still plenty of those around. I was in Spain recently at a fintech conference and I was on panel, all women, and every other panel was all men. I just chucked in that photo. I just love the art in that photo. I had to chuck it in there. And the other problem as well is in the area of technology, it's very much in the audience as well. So that's the audience of Tech Disrupt. Good example. I didn't want to use the obvious one. Somebody there with long hair. I think that's about it. So we weren't creating events that were welcoming enough to people that weren't white and male. White and male is wonderful, don't get me wrong. I'm not, I'm not trying to put anybody down here, but what we need is a mix of everybody. Obviously, like in the audience here, it's lovely to see such a mix. These are young women engineers. I mean, they weren't going to go anywhere if every time they went to an event, they never saw anybody who looked like them. So we started running back in 2012. We ran the Female Founders Forum, which was fantastic tech entrepreneurs. That's a younger me on the left there. On Silicon Republic, we ran 100 Top Women in STEM. STEM, for those who don't know, is science, technology, engineering, and maths. Then we brought them all in the room together. That was again a small event. But what we found is that our male community were coming to the events and saying, actually, do you know, these events are really interesting to us. We're meeting people we don't normally meet. We ran little women events up in the Digital Hub. These are the 3 girls who won the BT Young Scientists back about 4 years ago. And out of that grew, because so much of our community is not necessarily women, out of that grew Inspirefest, where the idea was that, sorry, I think I clicked on too far there. The idea was an event where everybody would feel welcome and everybody, we didn't want to create a women's only event. We didn't want a bunch of people in women in tech, like the other conferences have done. We'd give free tickets to women in tech and they'll all sit in one corner and be on one forum, as you showed there. What we wanted the most incredible women to be on stage with the most incredible men. We wanted the most incredible women to be in the audience with the incredible men. We wanted people of LGBTQ background, different ethnic background, different demographic background, new Irish. We just wanted to make sure that there was nothing at our event that would turn you off, that you would go there and you would see somebody on stage who looked like you. And that's really how Inspirefest was born. And these days we get all these companies attend, but then we have a massive community of just single attendees as well. These days we get about 3,000 people over 2 days from 42 countries. In fact, I think it's gone up to 47 now. An incredible thing for an event that only has 3,000 people at it. We trended #1 in the world for the 2 entire days. And that comes back to what Sharon was talking about, which is we haven't just built an event, we've built a community. We really have. So people who don't come one year come the next year. So like a load of people I know aren't going to make it this year because it's on in May. They can't necessarily make it. We were discussing this with Louise earlier. I guarantee you they'll be on Twitter, and Twitter's the big one for us because for content, particularly B2B and particularly technology tends to be Twitter, but they'll be on Facebook and LinkedIn. We use all the channels. Obviously, but to trend worldwide ahead of the Cannes Lions for 2 days, I think you'll admit there's something going on there that's more than just an event. And the way we've created that community is, as I say, you look at the lineup and it does not look like your average lineup at a tech event. This is the head of the National Science Foundation in the US who spoke a couple of years back. She was also the first woman chief engineer in NASA. This is her name is escaping me now, that's terrible. She spoke about 5 years ago, but she was the Chief Technology Officer at Pinterest, who came to spoke for us, Zoe, sorry. This is Arlen Hamilton. She's black, a woman, gay, and she's just after launching her 3rd investment fund where she funds underrepresented women and men. That's Sinead. I'm sure you probably all know Minnie Melange to Sinead. Nowadays she's a contributing editor to Vogue. She's spoken on our stage. That's Anna Matronic from Scissor Sisters, who is big into tech. She works for Click and BBC. We always have people that might just happen to be blind or happen to have a disability, neurodiverse, have autism, but they're also incredible entrepreneurs. You probably know Easy Wheels, do you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're amazing. But again, like we really avoid having tokenism on stage. So, it's only the best people who happen to have a disability or whatever it may be. We had an incredible computer scientist last year who happened to be blind. And then, dotted amongst that's the president of Bell Labs, who came over and spoke. So, the kind of more the usual suspects are there on stage as well. And what we've done is we've mixed it so that we end up with an audience that is mixed as well. That's actually, that blue figure there is growing, which is fantastic because what we're aiming for is 50-50. We love an audience of 50-50 because we've created something very inclusive. It doesn't tend to attract a slight majority of women, obviously because they've never had a conference like that in Ireland before. We also find it's hugely important to pull in the community where we don't encourage giving away free tickets, but we do incredible discount tickets for students, unemployed, etc. And we do bursaries for kids from disadvantaged areas and things like that. So because they'd never come along and get to see these kind of speakers. So we're inclusive that way. So the people who get the free tickets are the people who would never be brought along to a conference. You know, they just never make it there. We expect the young professionals to buy their own tickets. That's just the model we have. We want a very engaged audience. I don't want to sort of blind you with any more information, so I was going to show you a really quick video for anybody who hasn't been there, just to give you a sense of, I suppose, what a more creative, inclusive event can look like. And we're very proud of the fact that it sits here in Dublin down at the Silicon Docks, so hopefully the sound might work, Colin. So, Colin, you're the best.
What is the future of the human voice?
It's a funny way to think about humans as just resources. Instead of calling it HR, we should call it RH, resources for people. Like, how do we empower employees to thrive and do their best work?
So in the last year, we reached 100 companies that we invested in and made some announcements, including a new fund that we launched that's going to be investing $1 million at a time into companies that are led by Black women.
With this tech-savvy population and a mobile penetration rate of 90%, China has switched from being an imitator to an innovator.
But here's the problem with Wikipedia. Only about 13 to 16% of the 200,000 editors are women, which means only about 16% overall of the biographies that are on Wikipedia are of women. So clearly, it is not representative of humanity.
So that's it.